So I want to just give you a real quick introduction to it and show you how to do some of the basic editing and give you a tour of the program. So I'm starting with this manuscript from a few years ago. This is a very basic outline, or not outline, but draft that I began working with to try to create a format for Amazon using Word. So there's very limited formatting in here. I've got some italicization over here in the opening quote, and I have some stuff up in the header, and I have some indentation at the beginning of my paragraphs, but it's fairly marginal or very minimal in the amount of formatting that's there. So it's going to present less or fewer problems with the formatting inside Kindle Create. So I've already saved this. I pulled it out of my archives and saved it, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it in to Kindle Create right now. So let me go ahead and launch that real fast. So this will take me to this screen right here. This is where I can upload a new document. This is kind of just a little splash screen. We're working with a book, so you're going to go with the flow. This is going to work with all the different types of devices. And then we're going to bring our document in. So we're picking reflowable, and we're going to bring the document in that we want to work with. So that's the one I'm going to work with right here, and I'm opening it up real fast. It's importing it, and when that gets done, we'll continue. Okay, and so here we are, it's done now. So it's going to give you the screen telling you that the import was successful. Over on the left-hand side, you'll see it's showing us all the stuff that it did import. And just hit continue. You've probably done this before, so I'm showing you stuff you already know. This right here is going to break down your chapters. We're going to go ahead and get started. And the first thing that it does when you say break down the chapters, it's going to bring up this pop-up, and it shows you the suggested chapter titles. And for me, this isn't going to work because it's showing both chapter 1 and then the name of the chapter as separate chapters. So that would give me twice as many chapters as I actually need. So I'm going to reject all of those. I'll show you, if you need to, how to bring that back in. And there's my document. This is pretty straightforward. There's almost no formatting involved here. It's pretty straightforward and simple document. If we take a look at it just to see what it looks like, I'm going to hit preview. Boom. It doesn't look terrible, but it can look better. I'm going to take you on a tour real fast and show you where everything is on this screen. So this is a high level overview. We'll get into more detail as we go in. On the left hand side, you have your contents, and this is everything that has been imported. And you'll see right here, Kindle Creator has shown chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and it does correspond with the chapters because it looks for page breaks, which is typically how we denote a chapter or a new chapter in Word. And so it's pretty good about finding them, but it doesn't know these are actually chapters. It's just guessing. We have to tell it that this is a chapter before it can start working with it correctly. And this is what we call an element. I'll talk more about those in a second. But that section, this section over here, is our contents. And it not only displays and allows us to navigate to different sections in the book, it allows us to create some things. And you'll see down here at the bottom, it says apply one of the title elements. You have some plus options up here. These pluses down here, if you go way to the bottom, you have a plus for the back matter, you have for the body, and you have your front matter. So front matter, body, back matter. Your body's where the story takes place. So you can add some things. You can add a part page or a chapter page, and then you can, by clicking on these, by the way, you can shrink them down and hide them. So just so you know. You can also hide it by going up into view and clicking on that. That hides the whole panel. So the front matter is title page, copyright, dedication, epigraph, all those things that would go in the front of the book before the story or the body. And then, of course, back matter is going to be anything that would go in the back. And so some things that would be back matter would be books by this author, anything about the author, your books in a series like the Cold Fire trilogy. There's praise for the author, afterward, anything you want in there, and acknowledgments. So let's talk a little bit about the layout up here on the top. So I already showed you view, which hides this and brings this contents sidebar back. Undo and redo work just like they do with your word processor. If you make a mistake, you can undo it, and you can also redo it. Find exactly what it says. You click on that and it gives you a search option so you can look things up, which is pretty cool. You'll notice it dropped me all the way over to chapter 23. So I want to get back to my first chapter. I can do that by clicking up here. Again, I want to emphasize we are not dealing with chapters right now. At least Kindle Creator doesn't recognize them as chapters. You have the option to insert things. You can insert an image into the body. You can insert an image at the top of the chapter, and you can also create a table of contents, and I'll talk more about that later. These are just the different menu options. Over on the right hand side you have print settings, and this is how you would want your printed book to show. So Kindle Creator, in addition to creating an Amazon Kindle book, also has the ability of generating a file for creating a print on demand book, which you can go in and print from Amazon's Create space. It's not a bad quality product. I prefer Barnes & Noble because you can do a hardcover from Barnes & Noble, and you can also do a paperback, and you don't have that option with Kindle Create space. You can only do a paperback, and you're kind of limited on your options. I like Barnes & Noble. Plus, if you're doing a self-publishing print-on-demand thing, Barnes & Noble, you keep more of the money for yourself. Kindle Create space keeps more money than Barnes & Noble does. And I think Barnes & Noble does a better print job anyway. You can pick your theme. Your theme is going to apply to the ebook. So just like print settings kind of sets the format or the style for the printed book, the theme determines the style for the electronic book, and you have a few styles you can pick from: modern, classic, cosmos, and Armour. I like classic myself. Modern works as well. You can pick either one. These are not set in stone. You can edit these, so that's something you can do. Saves the file you're working with. Preview, you'll use this a lot. Preview shows you what your final product will look like. And you've got some things that you can do here. You can say what it looks like on a tablet, a phone, or a Kindle e-reader, and you can pick what page you want to be on by using the scroller. If you have created a table of contents, it shows you here, and you can use that to navigate. We haven't done that yet, so it's not in there. You'll use that a lot. Every time I make any kind of change, I go in there and I look at it. You also use save a lot. It's a good idea to save what you're doing in case the program crashes. When you're finally done and finished with everything, the generate button generates you an electronic book you can upload to Kindle. So let's talk about the other sidebar, this sidebar on the right. So you've got right here, this first one, it's got two parts to it. You have elements and you have formatting. So let's look at elements first. To begin with, up here at the top, you have cascade formatting changes for the elements. So what elements are is an embedded code that you can't see, but it tags a section or a paragraph or a sentence and tells Kindle Reader to do certain things with it. So for instance, over here, we say it's chapter 1, but if you actually look at this where it says chapter 1, and you look at the current element, and you see right here it says body text, that's telling the Kindle program and the Kindle Reader, when you publish it to Kindle and they download it to their tablet, tells it, hey, this is not anything special. This is just text. And so it's not going to be able to use it to build a table of contents, but we can change this element right here, this chapter 1, and we can change that to a chapter title. And as soon as we do that, we end up with an item that can be used as the table of contents. I'm going to show you over here real fast. I'm going to jump back over here to the front matter on the left-hand side. Remember, one of the options we could do is create a table of contents. Right? When I click on the table of contents, there's not anything in here right now. That's because Kindle Creator doesn't see anything that would be identified as a chapter heading or something that it would want to index as part of your table of contents. So what we can do is we can go over here. We're in chapter 1, and we can, on this side, give this chapter, let's go back to chapter 1. I'm in the wrong place. Oh, that's weird. That got moved. Oh, I don't know if you saw what I just did. I accidentally moved this around. You can drag these things around into different places, and they'll move around. So you can rearrange your chapters while you're in here as well. But let's go back to chapter 1. So chapter 1, our current element is just body text, and I want that to actually be a chapter title. So I'm going to go down here and make sure I've got that selected. You don't have to click on the whole thing and highlight it. You just have to click right next to it, and you're going to give it a chapter title. And as soon as I do that, over here it's been changed, and I now have chapter 1. This is now a chapter. You can tell by that little hashtag right there. This is where my page numbering is going to begin. It now knows that that's a chapter, and my page numbering begins right here. What's really cool about that now is if I go in my table of contents, I have a chapter 1 now, because it now knows that's a chapter. This is an element. It's not a formatting choice, though it will apply formatting. Its main purpose is to identify a piece or a section of your document and give it certain characteristics so that the Kindle program knows how to handle it. I can also create a subtitle. So right down here where it says Pillars of Heaven, you'll notice over here it says body text. I'm going to create that as a subtitle for the chapter. This is important to do, and it goes back up to this little guy right up here where it says Cascade Formatting Changes for Elements. So if this is checked, what this means is from now on, as I go in here and I add chapters to these different sections and I turn them into chapters, whatever formatting that I apply here will apply across the entire book. I only have to do it once. It'll apply across the whole book. So that's actually very useful to have. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn everything into chapters here real fast. The video is going to fast forward through this so you don't have to deal with it, but it's very simple. You basically click on the section over here on the left sidebar and then click on chapter title, and it's automatically going to do that for you. All you have to do is select on the section and hit chapter title. And I'm going to go ahead and do this for the entire book. Okay, now if you'll notice on the left-hand side, I have all my chapters have been identified. So they're all now chapters. They're set up the way that I want them to be. There is some editing that I have to do because if you go in here, you'll see chapter 1, Pillars of Heaven. Right here, this chapter subtitle hasn't been propagated across all of these because I haven't changed these right here. So this is still a body text right here. You can see that right there. So I'd have to go in there and update those, and I will. It's not urgent right now, and so I want to just move through with the video here real fast. So this is setting everything up. These are now my markers or indicators that this is a chapter. This is a chapter title, and that's what makes this into a chapter. This is a chapter subtitle, and that changes the formatting, but it also tells me what that is. And then down here, I have my first paragraph of my chapter. And one of the elements I can apply to this paragraph is making this a chapter first paragraph, and that's going to apply some formatting. Now, I don't need to do that. It's not essential, but if I do, you'll see it changes the way that looks. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Now, we mentioned before, I can go back and I can undo some stuff. Now, if I wanted to go back and hit undo, since I've done all these things where I've changed everything in here to a chapter title, let's say I want to go back here and change this to something else. Well, if I hit undo, I've got 24 chapters and 3 appendices. So that leaves me with 27 changes plus the one I just did. So I've got 28 changes to get all the way back here to this one. And that can be kind of a problem because I don't have to go do all that work again. What I can do is I can go in here and I can click on that particular line of text and I want to change it. So over here, you see right underneath the current element, it says chapter subtitle. I can clear that. And as soon as I do that, it removes any of the formatting elements and the tags that tell Kindle what this is. I can then put them back. So that's now a chapter subtitle again. Now it's not. And I don't have to worry about all those undos. So I can actually clear that element off of there, which is really, really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and put that chapter subtitle back in there because that is what I want to do. So I've done these changes here. I can go and look at my preview and it looks a little bit better. It's cleaned it up some, but it's still not where I want it to be. So this is probably where you got stuck because you're in this elements page and there's not a lot of formatting options. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and start some changes. I'm not going to build my table of contents yet because I'm going to do that at the end because some things might change and I want to build the table of contents last. But if I did want to build my table of contents, I would just click on chapter 1, make sure it's going to go before that. I'm going to go up to my front matter and I would just choose table of contents. And you can see there they are right there. And it's going to allow me to navigate. So let's go ahead and create that here real fast. And now I have my table of contents in my front matter, and it's actually really nice. If I go into my preview right here, I can click on these and it navigates me to where I want to go. So table of contents is nice. I can create it. I can also get rid of it if I want to. It's set to auto. I can get rid of it if I want to just by clicking on it, and I can delete that section. I'm going to go ahead and leave it for right now, but I usually do my table of contents last. Some other stuff that I want to do before I begin formatting the book, and you can do this at any point in time. You can do it at the end, you can do it at the beginning like I'm going to do, you can do it in the middle. Doesn't make a difference, but I'm going to add some more front matter, and I'm going to add my title page. And that's me. I like to do things in a linear way. So I'm going to add my title page. This was the worst title for a book because there are so many books with that title. I should have Googled it and come up with a better one. You don't have to put in the subtitle if you don't want to. It does require the book title and then of course your name. And then if you've got your publisher, if you're self-publishing, you can leave it blank. I'm going to just put in some gibberish here real fast. And you can actually put in the publisher's logo or their image. I'm going to go ahead and put in just an icon right there. And I'm going to create the page. So what that does is that creates a page right in here, and it's going to give me misspelled Chronicles. So I can go ahead and edit that, and I can fix my Chronicles where I misspelled it. Notice there's not a spell check in here, so just be aware of that. Update the page, and you'll notice right here it's now hyphenated it because of the spelling being different. It's changed that, but that's not what it's going to look like. So I've done some stuff here. I want to see what it looks like. I hit my preview. That's what my title page looks like. Boom, there's my table of contents. I do want to get my copyright information in there as well. Like I said, you can do this at any point in time. I just usually do it at the beginning. So there's my copyright. I am the owner of the copyright, and I don't remember what year I published this, so I'm just going to go with 2021. All rights reserved. It's standard copyright legalese. And then if you've got your ISBN 13 and 10-digit codes, you can put those in there. You can give attribution to your cover artist, and I don't remember the guy who did my cover art. He's a Russian, and I couldn't spell his name anyway if I wanted to. So we'll just put Russian guy in there. If you have a Library of Congress control number, you can put all that stuff in there, and it's going to create you a very generic but legally sound copyright page. And now when I go into my preview, I've got my title page. I've got my copyright page. I've got my table of contents. So all that stuff's there, and you'll notice those got added to the table of contents. So they're right there. They've been added to the table of contents. So that's kind of nice. So let's talk about the formatting now. Every time I make changes, I always go into preview and I look to see how it looks. This is okay, but I don't really like the look of it. I don't like the feel that it's bringing in for me. So I'm going to change some things about this. I don't like this white space in here. I don't like the giant drop cap. I want to change the fonts a little bit. So to do that, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to move away from the Elements tab, and I'm going to go into the Formatting tab. So the Formatting tab is going to give me a lot more control over some of the stuff that I want to do. I am going to change some things back here in Elements I forgot to point out to you. So I don't like this right here, and I'm going to change it to, and this is a real quick one. I can do it inside formatting, and I can change some things here by going into the font options, indent, spacing, all that sort of stuff. That's a little more work. So in the elements, there's some standard elements that I can use, like a subheading or a block quote. I can add an opening quote. I can add an attribution for the opening quote credit. So I'm going to go with a block quote because I like that better. I can do an opening quote, but I don't really like the look of that one. It looks too much like a newspaper article. So I'm going with block quote. And I'm going to give this an attribution here over on the side. And already you can see that's looking a little bit better. Still not 100%. I've got a lot of white space between these that I don't like. So I'm going to go ahead and fix those. And to fix those, I go into formatting. So the first thing you have to be aware is, like I said, this is not an editor. This is a layout and design program. So the first thing you need to be aware of is that when you go in here and you try to remove spaces by hitting delete, so right here you see there's nothing in between. So if I came in here and I hit backspace on this, it's going to change the formatting. You may have run into this already, and it's not what I want, and it's just changed my first paragraph. It's crazy. It's driving me nuts. So you actually have to input commands that tell the reader and the program how to display text. I'm going to go up here and undo. And so let's look at here in this. So we have the font settings. This is pretty obvious. I can take font and I can change stuff. I can change the formatting. I can make it bold. I can unbold it. I can change the font size. I can change the color. I do have a couple font options available to me, but I'm not too worried about those. These are going to be the default fonts, so that when the reader opens the book on their device, they will see what I want them to see, but they can go in and change those fonts if they want to. It doesn't really matter. I don't have the kind of control that I do with a printed book, because the reader has that control to make the font and the layout easier for them to read. I do like serif fonts, so I stay with those. I can do none, which will just do that. I can do all lowercase. I can do title case. I can do none. So I don't want to do those things. So I'm just going to leave it as it is because that looks good. I don't like the font size at 12 though, so I'm going to change that and bring it down to 10. That I think looks a little bit better. I like it when it's a little bit smaller. I think that looks better. And I'm going to bring the attribution down as well. And I can, these are all font things. So that's at 9. I'm okay with 9. I can drop it down to 8. I think that might look okay. And it does. So I like that. That works well. There's some other things that I don't like. This white space bothers me. I'm not a big fan of the white space between chapter 1 title and the subtitle. So I'm going to go ahead and change those. As I mentioned before, this is not an editor, so you have to tell it what to do. So let's look at some of the things that we can do in here. So I showed you the advanced font options, and you can expand these. These little arrows mean there's more to be seen, so I click on that, and I can do strike through. I can do subscript or superscript. Those are options. I can highlight it. I can do letter spacing. These are a lot of more sophisticated things. I can change the alignment where I want it to be. This one's all the way over to the right, but you'll notice something about this. This right here doesn't quite line up with this, so I'm going to change that as well as get rid of some of this white space. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a section, and I'm going to change the spacing between these. Right here, I've got this space. I don't like that space in here. So when I go down here and I have these things, I have indents and I have spacing. So my spacing here, I have 3 kinds of spacing. I have the spacing above, I have the spacing below, and I have the spacing between. So for multiple lines, I can change the space between those individual lines. So when I look at this, this has a spacing of 0.75. It doesn't have a spacing below. And if I do that, you'll see it pushes that text down further. So I'm going to leave that at 0, I'm going to go down here because this one does have spacing above, and I'm going to bring it down, going the wrong direction. I'm going to bring it down to 0. Let's see what that looks like. I like that a lot better. Okay. So I'm still not a big fan. I can't go into the negatives. You can't go into the negatives. I'm still not a fan of the italics. I'm going to fix those later. The other thing I have here is I don't like the space between this and this. I want to bring it down a little bit. Again, you'll notice I have a little bit of spacing after this. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up. Bring it down to 0. And let's see how that looks. I like that a lot better. That looks a lot better. I have this white space between the first paragraph and that line, so I'm going to go ahead and change that. You'll notice right here, there is no spacing below, so there's going to be spacing above this one, and there sure is. That spacing right here you can see is 4. I'm going to lower that to 2. Now when I preview it, I like that. That looks a lot better. I like the look of that. Not a big fan of that big K. It's just kind of overwhelming. I like drop caps, but I like them to be a little bit smaller. So while I've got that paragraph selected up here underneath my paragraphs, I have the drop cap selector, and I can kick it all the way up to I believe 5, which is huge, or I can take it all the way down to 2. These are not, by the way, points. Like you might have like 13 point or 2 point would be very small in your word processor. These are just gradations. This is a scale of 2 to 5, and it doesn't determine how big the font is going to be in the reader, because again, the person who is using the device can select how big they want their font to be. In fact, I'm going to show you that right now when we look at the preview. So I've got it down to 2. I like it a lot better. When I go into the preview right here, that looks a lot cleaner to me. I like that. As I mentioned, inside the reader, the device, the person who's reading it can choose what font size they want. These are not the actual points. This is just a scale of 1 to 12. 12 being absolutely huge, 1 being really small. So the first thing that I notice when I go down to this smaller scale, it actually puts more words onto the screen, but also that first paragraph is not matching the line spacing of the second paragraph. But that's a good way of checking to see there's a problem, is go in here and change your font to the smallest, because right here I wouldn't see that, and I might not catch it if I move over to this next one. So I'm going to go ahead and always move it to the smallest so I can get the most text on the screen as possible, and then I'm going to see things like this. So that's a problem, and I want to fix that. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the spacing on the lines. Remember, we changed the spacing between sections. We can also change the spacing right down here between lines. Well, it's at 1.2. I don't know what the spacing should be, so let's go look at one of the other paragraphs. I'm going to scroll down and click on this paragraph here, which I know has got this kind of cleaner spacing that I like a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And that right down here shows me that's a 1. So I'm going to go up here to this first one, and I'm going to highlight all the text, and I'm going to change my spacing to 1. And now when I look at my preview right here, my spacing's better. There's a little bit of a gap that I'm not happy with, and you can kind of see that right here, and that's because it fell over onto the other page, so it got missed when I did that. Not a problem. I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to fix the rest of that paragraph right there and bring it down to 1 as well. Look at my preview. Let's bring this back down to 1. And now my preview looks fine. So this is already looking a lot better than what we initially had when we brought it in the first place. I do want to fix some things. I want to change my formatting a little bit and change my font up here because I don't like this very much. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here and go back up to this. Now remember what I said up here where we cascade formatting changes for the elements, because this is an element, this is a chapter subtitle. Whatever I change in here will propagate to all the others. So I've got chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, 5. They all look a little bit different. So let's change chapter 1. Let's change the title here real fast. I don't like that element. I like things with a serif, so I'm going to change that to chapter 1. I don't want that as big, so I'm going to bring it down here to, let's make it a 16, so it's smaller. And I'm going to change this, which is a chapter subtitle element. I'm going to get rid of that italic, and I'm going to get rid of the blue and make it a black. And again, I do like serif, so I'm going to pick that right there. And I want the title to be bigger, so let's bring that up to 22. So now when I go in here and I look at the preview right here, this looks a lot better to me. I've cleaned it up. It looks a lot nicer. You can see the difference, and I like how it looks. Let's go look at chapter 2. You'll notice chapter 2 now matches chapter 1's title setting. This, however, doesn't match my subtitle, because in here, when I click on this, it says chapter subtitle. But in here, when I click on that line of text, it says it's a body text. So I'm going to clear that out, and I'm going to go back into the Elements tab, and I'm going to change that to a chapter subtitle. And you'll notice it now looks like chapter 1's chapter subtitle. So that formatting is propagating throughout, which is really nice. When I go into preview right here, I can see how that works. But this is now much nicer looking. However, if you go back here to the chapter 1, I have a drop cap right here that I don't have in chapter 2. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to fix that real fast. And I'm going to go into my element style and I'm going to apply that. And you'll notice the first thing it did is it didn't adopt the same one. So the only two that this actually affects are the chapter title and the chapter subtitle, just so you know. That's fine. It's not that big a deal. It does say it's chapter first paragraph. I'm going to clear that out because I don't want that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the formatting and I'm going to do my drop cap from in here. So I'm going to do my drop cap right there. Click on that and I'm going to apply the drop cap and I'm just going to do 3. And there's a reason why I do that, because when I do it this way, you'll notice right in here, it doesn't mess up the formatting like the last one did. So that's why I do that. This doesn't look nice. It's not clean. It's kind of sloppy because I don't have the spacing. I do recommend having kind of a style guide, just a little notepad that you keep track of these things in here. So when I go into chapter 1 and I look at the spacing for this, my spacing here is 1 for that. It's 1 for that. And then for here, my spacing is also 1. For down here, 1. And then for here, I have a spacing of 2. You see that right there. So all that's going to go into effect here. The other thing is I don't really like it when the chapter is that close to the top. So I do push it down. So I go up here and I'm going to put my spacing at the top, actually all the way up to 6. I like it when it's further down. I just think that's cleaner. I like that. It's an easy, I know I'm on a new chapter. If I go to chapter 2, it's going to automatically do the same thing. You see how it did that? And that's because it knows that that one right there is the same. So it's going to automatically do that. The beauty of this is because I've got chapter 1 here. If I change the setting for this subtext right here so that it's got the space below it, I won't have to do it for everything else. So instead of having this one right here, having that spacing of 1, I'm going to take it down to 0. Right there. So now that's at 0. And then because this is an actual element, I'm going to use its bottom spacer to put that gap in there. I'm going to take it up to 2. I think 1.5 looks good. Let's see what it looks like. 1.5. 1.5 looks good. I like that. So what that does for me now is when I go into chapter 2, it's done that gap for me. So now every chapter that I do is going to do that automatically for me. Now I've got my layout. I like the way that it looks. I just have to go through and I have to fix these guys right here. So I'm going to go to chapter 3. I'm going to clear the formatting on this and I am going to apply my drop cap right there. And I'm going to apply in my elements right here, a chapter subtitle, and automatically you can see it's done that spacing for me. Everything is there. So this is going to make it a lot easier for you. It's that simple. I'd save my work if I were you. fairly frequently in case the program crashes. I haven't seen it crash. It seems pretty stable, but this is going to save that work for you. Once you're done doing that, you're all set. You can add a chapter start image and you can put it at the top. So the chapter start image goes at the top. I'm just going to grab a stock photo here that I have. So I can put that at the top of my picture. I want to have this right here so that we've got some of the mountain peak cleared right there. It does require a description if you're going to use a reader. If you're going to exclude it, you can say this is not an important part of the book. So if this were an illustration and you needed to describe what the illustration was of, you would put that description in there, but it's just a picture for a chapter heading. So you can hit exclude that and it'll just ignore it. And then just hit insert image. And now that's in there and you can change the size of it. And when we look at the preview, it's right there. And you've got something really cool in there. So you can have that in there and it will display accordingly. I don't like that, so I'm going to just go ahead and undo that because I don't want that in there. You can also insert images directly into the text. So you can insert an image and it'll put it in here anywhere. So let's grab a warrior dude right here. We'll put him in there. There's my warrior dude, and it's just stock footage that I found somewhere. This is kind of cool because I can do different things with this. I can change, make it a full-size image. I can make it large. I can change the size of it, and I can determine where it goes. So that puts on the left and wraps the text around it. This puts it at the top. It puts it at the right. I do have my golden sumus that I use, which is just has to do with the way magic works in the world. That's pretty big. I don't want anything that big. I do want it right there. So I can change the spacing on here. Right here, I'd have to do it with this in the formatting because I can't change the spacing around here. I'd have to do it with this and change the spacing for this one so the bottom spacing isn't quite so big, and I'm going to bring it down so this is more like this. I can do that, and then the preview will look something like this, which is kind of cool. It gives the book a little bit more character, so you can do that. But just bear in mind that because that's not going to be in every single one, it's going to change the spacing between those two things because I did that. Just be aware. So yeah, so that you can bring some more character or some more flair or personalization into your book by adding those images in there if you want to do that. So those are some things that give you a very unique looking book. So I'm going to go ahead and, since I did most of the editing with chapter 1, I'm just going to add that image in there. By the way, you can actually copy and paste. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go up to edit. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go up to chapter 1 and I'm going to paste. And now I have that in there again with that same distancing that's in there. I probably want to put a little bit of a space in here. If you now look at your preview here, I now have a much more interesting book as a result. Because I've added that image in there, I would probably raise my chapter up. My chapter heading, because I'm going to have the image on every single page. So I go into formatting and I'm going to, on that top one, I'm going to bring it down a little bit. I kind of like how that's on one page. So there's that right there. Boom. And that'll be the case for, of course, all of the others as well. So, which is kind of cool. I can go in here, I can just add that in there to every single one. Chapter 2 is going to get that same thing. I hit that right there. You see already it went up. You can see where that went in there. And I'm just going to go in and hit paste. Boom. That's in there now. So now when I go from contents, I go chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and you can see that it's consistent where that image stays. So you can give yourself some unique characteristics and flair to your book. Hopefully this takes you where you want to go and helps you get done what you want to do with your Amazon